the All Blacks versus the Pumas, and what a cracking game we had. Just going to bring up YouTube and then we'll get right into this. But yes, it might have finished 46-24, but let's be honest, this was a cracking old game. It wasn't just this wasn't as I say, this wasn't a blowout in the same way that we've seen other games with the All Blacks recently, which is great to see. So good evening, Jack and everyone else who is joining us. Richard Mo'unga is going to be one of the talking points, was one of the talking points coming into this game. So let's start off with him then. Had an okay game on the whole, but let's be honest, had a couple of problems defensively with kicks through, missed touch a couple of times, didn't have a wonderful game, but got through a lot of work and did absolutely fine. So, but yeah, I'd say not the perhaps not the sort of game that a lot of people were kind of expecting and wanting to see from him, with lots of razzle dazzle and all of that kind of stuff. But got through his work, got through his tackling, did okay. 10 runs, 33 metres, and he's not especially running threat, but there we go. The Pumas, though, let's talk about them, because at the end of the day, this was a lot about them. Now, one of the things people will probably mention is that the All Blacks were down players. They lost Retallick early. He got an early knock. They lost Mappy early as well, and Ben Smith also went off for a HIA and came back on. We'll come back to that one in a second. So yeah, so maybe there wasn't quite the impact from the bench that you'd expect in that second half. With the fact that you've already lost, we had Sam Whitelock coming on early, and we also had Anton Leonard-Brown coming on early as well. So there wasn't that kind of same impact from the bench that you might expect. But even so, this was a very good performance by the Pumas. Bit surprised that early on we saw the All Blacks kicking for sticks and taking 3 points. That's not really their normal kind of style of things. But 3 minutes in, that's what they did. I guess that helps calm down some nerves around that. But even so, that was still, quite a surprise to see them doing that rather than going to the corner and scoring tries. So they did that. And Argentina had the opportunity to level things up, but Sanchez had an absolute shocking kick early on. After that, he had a very good game, but he missed that one, as I say, early. The other thing that came out early on in the first sort of 10 or 15 minutes, really was the All Black scrum was on top. Quite clearly and quite considerably. The Pumas, scrum really was struggling in those early stages, and whilst it steadied itself out during the game, it never ever really got proper parity in this one. So there was always an issue there around scrum time. The other thing we were seeing in that first 50 minutes, both sides were making breaks, but mainly the All Blacks. And the All Blacks racked up something like 10 clean breaks in the first sort of quarter of this game. But they also racked up 6 turnovers. We saw lots of offloads being thrown that perhaps weren't really on. Shannon Frizzell perhaps being guilty of this, and we saw Wyatt Crockett talking about that at half time. And that meant that a lot of these All Blacks, the All Blacks attacks were coming to nothing because of that. Now, Frizzell had a fantastic first half, racked up, 60 odd metres carrying ball in hand. Didn't really do much in the second half, but really, he just needed to calm down some of his decision making once he'd made the break. And that's what we saw really happen after about the first 15 minutes. But before that, we had a fantastic try by Mayano, who beat 3 players out wide. Sure, Neymar Scudder, on the commentary, it's about Neymar Scudder stepping in, but still, Richie Mwanga, TG Piranara, and there's someone else gone blank, were there to cover him. So, for my mind, there was definitely cover to catch him, but his steps and his stepping was fantastic. So the Pumas got that first try on the board. So after 15 minutes, they were 3-7 up. But something that we saw happen throughout this game was whenever Argentina scored a try, New Zealand came back and scored on very quickly afterwards. And that's what we saw. New Zealand cut out those offloads. They cut out. They made sure that they had control of the ball, and suddenly we weren't seeing a number of turnovers. So I mentioned that we had something like 6 in the first 15 minutes. Having a quick look at the stats now, New Zealand finished off with 17 turnovers in total, and so there were still quite a few of them, but they ended up having 17 clean breaks, 17 turnovers. Early on, they had like 10 clean breaks to 6 turnovers. So clearly, that obviously changed. But to me, it felt like they cut down that side of things, and they did dominate from about 15 minutes through till for the next sort of 20-minute period. They dominated that section. Neymar Scudder scored out wide. TG Piranara managed to snipe over after his forwards had done a lot of work to lead 15-7. And then against the run of play, Sanchez made a wonderful break. Marioni still had players to beat. TG Piranara got underneath him, and his foot touched just the white line as he was trying to put the ball down, which was really a shame, because if we'd had 15, if we got into being 15-14 heading towards half time, this would have been a much more competitive game. But to be fair to the All Blacks, they had dominated that section. It was against the run of play. The Pumas did come back, had the best of the last 5 minutes, only giving up a penalty just before half time to lead, so that the All Blacks were leading 18-7. With that bit of comfort there, because suddenly it's 11 points. It's a couple of scores. We come out of the second half, and Argentina you've got to really give Mario Desma some props here. Really managed to take them in, talk them through it, explain very clearly and succinctly in a short amount of time what they needed to do and how they needed to change things. Because boy, they came out and dominated. Basically, the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes of the game, they got the first try. Sanchez dummying, going over after a turnover from the kickoff, and which happened. Mwanga had a couple of had another defensive error around that point, and Argentina were on top. They just couldn't actually finish off and get that second try that would really have made it interesting at that point, because that closed things up to 18-14. A try at that point would have given Argentina the lead, would have given a lot of belief. But no, Ben Smith breached the line. Argentina had all the play, but against run of play, Ben Smith breached the line, and then Reed bashed over soon afterwards to make it 25-14. Argentina stayed on top really all the way through until about the 55th minute. Carl was guilty at the breakdown, and Sanchez decided to put a kick over to take things up to 25-17. It's a bit questionable whether he should have taken the 3, but we've seen so many times teams go into the All Blacks 22 and not come away with points. So yeah, I wasn't totally against it. I thought that getting the 3 wasn't a bad idea. And it was still a 2 points margin, 2 score margin rather than 1 score margin. But even so, getting something I think was good for morale at that point. They hadn't scored for nearly 15 minutes, so to get something on the board would have been good. Then against the run of play, Anton Brown spots a player rushing up, sees the gap, hits it at pace, and releases TJ to go over untouched. That really was against the run of play. But again, it shows how clinical the All Blacks are, how you have to maintain your discipline, maintain your concentration the whole time. Because one player rushed up, suddenly there was a dog leg there was a gap that Anton Brown could hit and go through, whereas if he'd come up together with the other player, that wouldn't have been there. But yeah, props to Anton Brown spotting it. He's had a good game coming on from that. We then the Pumas were next to score off the back of a scrum, surprisingly, because their scrum had been poor. The All Blacks did give up 3 or 4 penalties within 5 metres of their line. Should there be a yellow card? Possibly. Let's be honest, it's what the All Blacks do. They get away. They do give up. They much rather try and give up 3 than give up 5. And until referees really start giving those yellow cards, that's how they're going to play. Because hey, it's a much better way of doing it. Lovely move by Sanchez. The no-look pop to Boffelli, who went over. And Sanchez really, we've seen the best of him over these last 2 games, I think, against the Springboks and against the All Blacks. Really has grown. I at the last Rugby World Cup and for a while after, I always thought that he was a bit flaky and needed Hernandez outside him. Obviously, with Hernandez retiring last season, it's been great to see Sanchez not need that experience, that responsibility outside, and be able to actually take all of it on himself. Then the score could have blew out with a couple of late tries by the All Blacks, 16 phases before Frizzell bashed over, and then some absolutely delightful handling from D-Mac, Mwanga, Triple T, and Goodhue, back to D-Mac again, and then Goodhue goes over. So, but really, against the scoreline doesn't show how the sort of game really went. Clearly, this team under Mario Ledesma are playing much better than they were under their last coach, and it's great to see them playing for each other again. On some of the stats though, they had the better of the possession and territory because of that second half. Pardon me, in particular, 55 and 56%. But they made 9 clean breaks compared to 17 by the All Blacks. Looked after the pill a bit better, 11 turnovers to 17. But where they had a real problem was in 2 areas. One was tackling. Only 68% of their tackles that they made, compared to 82 by the All Blacks. They made the All Blacks make 100 or try to make 152 tackles, completing 124. And the other area was penalties. Again, was a problem for them, especially at the breakdown. 7 by New Zealand to 14 by Argentina. And we can see from the lineouts as to that gave the All Blacks a lot of territory at times and let them off the hook about these things. The All Blacks did lose three lineouts. 3 good steals by Argentina. So it's good to see them do well there. Was very obviously they do have a very good lineout. Talked about Frizzell already. He had a very good first half. I saw a comment from Brent thinking he was man of the match. I think he had a very good first half. I think he sort of disappeared in that second half a bit too much, unfortunately. Ali Surveyor, the other player that sort of come in that in that back row, had a couple of bar swing runs late on, but again didn't manage to impose himself against fresh people. Anton Brown came on and played very well. I've already mentioned him, but he looked composed in that 12 kind of jersey. I'm not sure whether he's naturally a 12 or a 13. Normally he's a 13, but I think he's done very well slipping in the one place to there. Clearly, it was good to see Neymar was going to get through 80 minutes. I think he needs more game time at this level first, really. But he did come away with that try, which was good. Jack Goodhue, as we heard on commentary also, is someone who has stepped up at this level and definitely looks very comfortable. I think we're going to see him there for a long time to come. Brazil we are as well, because say very good first half, just needs to perhaps learn how to pace himself for that second say less an impact in the second half. But he was the top tackler for the All Blacks, 16 made, 0 missed, so fantastic for Brazil. Only Surveyor 15, 1 missed. Scott Barrett got through a chunk of work as well with 10 tackles, as is Sam Whitelock with 13. Looking over onto Argentina's side of things, Creevy, as always, involved in that breakdown area with 10 tackles himself. Lavanini, another big, obviously a big presence, a physical presence, and Lizana also with the Lavanini with 11, Lizana with 13 tackles, all big in that kind of space. Attacking wise, you got to say the back three for Argentina were fantastic. Buffelli, Delgui, and Moyano. Moriano also played pretty well. Fuente a little more quiet in this game, didn't get the space that those other players do. And I guess in that 12 channel, you're not really going to. But yeah, Moyano with 112 top the meters carried in this game. 7 defenders beaten. I mean, that was just very impressive by him. Sanchez, as we say, again, ran things very well, has really come of age, and again, very impressed by his work there as well. Decio, not so much on the and Kramer got through a lot of work as 11 carrying the ball. Decio managed to get the most yards, but the other guys got through a lot of carries. And one of the things we've said about the way the Pumas and the Jaguares play is we quite often, if we look at the number of passes they make, equals number of runs. They tend to play pretty narrow. In this game, though, 194 tackles, 151 runs. They were definitely playing with more width today, which was interesting to see. So much happier to spin the ball wide, probably about a similar kind of ratio to the All Blacks as well. One of the differences, though, the All Blacks made 142 runs compared to 151 by Argentina, but they made 150 extra meters with ball in hand. They were more effective, more precise, as we always hear from the All Blacks. But this was a major step up by Argentina. 2 big performances on the trot now in Creevy's second and third game with the Pumas. We've got to remember, whilst Ledesma's second and third game with the Pumas, he is a brand new coach with them. He will be trying to bring through new ideas. Now, okay, he has had most of these players available to him with Jaguares, so it's not like other international coaching positions where some of the players won't know him. But still, bringing that to the international stage will take time for him to do. And so it's impressive that, yeah, he's got that win over the Springboks and a very good performance against the All Blacks in his second and third games. It's going to make that game against the Wallabies next weekend really interesting, because if the Wallabies lose now against the Springboks, do the Pumas actually go into that game as favourites? Which might sound crazy, but yeah, there is that possibility. Anyway, congratulations to the All Blacks. Very good win. Actually, the other player that came on, yeah, Triple T, hardly mentioned him. Obviously, debuted in this game. Came on with 9 minutes to go, and yeah, had a decent 9 minutes. Did what he needed to do, and we'll see how he grows from there. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll try and get back on after the Wallabies versus the Springboks. So do join me for that game as well.